Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture of literature. I'm Adrian Fort, and we are here for another poetry discussion. This poetry discussion is a discussion of one of the trench poets from World War I. This is from Rupert Brooke, the poem in question, titled "The Soldier," and it reads as such: "If I should die, think only this of me, that there's some corner of a foreign field that is forever England. There shall be in that rich earth a richer dust concealed, a dust whom English bore, shaped, made aware, gave once her flowers to love, her ways to roam, a body of England's breathing English air, washed by the rivers, blessed by the sons of home. And think, this heart all evil shed away, a pulse in the eternal mind, no less, gives somewhere back the thoughts by England given, her sights and sounds, dreams happy as her day, and laughter learnt of friends and gentleness, in hearts at peace under an English heaven." The Soldier by Rupert Brooke really gives you the welly, doesn't it? Now, oftentimes, when learning about the trench poets, or reading about the trench poets, or listening about the trench poets, the soldier is sort of trotted out as the token pro-war poem. And fair enough. I, too, am of the consideration that it is the anti-war poems from the trench poets, people who were fighting in the war, that are so much more interesting, so much more complex, so much more dynamic when you're talking about the thoughts involved, the ideas involved in that type of poetry. In fact, the one conceit here that is sort of novel is, hey, I'm going to go off and I'm going to fight for England, and if I die, probably I'll die. I'll get shot, I'll get killed, because that's a big war. If I go off into this other place and I die in one of those foreign fields, there will lie England. Now, leave it to the British to be thinking about colonization in a time of war, but it's a sort of different idea. Look, he goes into everything down to, I was washed by the rivers of this land. So, whatever dirty foreign country I die in will be a little bit cleaner because there's some England there. I think I was lied to as an undergraduate. I think I was told that Rupert Brooke did not see action in the First World War. Now, it seems, and again, I'm not a Rupert Brooke or a World War I trench poet scholar, but I do like talking about the stuff. It seems Rupert Brooke did see action in the defense of Antwerp. But what happens is, I mention that this is often rolled out as the token example of pro-war poetry with the trench poet movement. And what is said is, oh, well, Rupert Brooke didn't even see action in the First World War. He died on a ship trying to get there. That's why his poetry remains so pro-England, so pro-war. But that takes something from the poet, doesn't it? That is an attempt to strip the idea that the poet, Rupert Brooke, had any idea of what he was getting into, which sort of, fair enough, but the conceit in this poem is that the poet understands he might die. Now, intent isn't everything, for sure. Rupert Brooke did die while in service. died of malaria, I believe. Something like that. He caught something on a ship between stations and ended up dying on the ship fairly quickly, I believe. Also, this is a Petrarchan sonnet, which is Italian, but damn it, if the English don't love them. By the way, us Americans, we much prefer the free verse poetry because don't tell us what to do. Now, maybe that doesn't have anything to do with this poem, but I think that it is a sort of general rule worth listening to. And for that, I mean, you can go all the way back to Walt Whitman, as far as don't tell me what to do with American poets. So the idea that I want to talk about, though, so it's sort of a disrespectful idea that is often attributed or is often correlated with this poem because of the larger anti-war movement that is associated with the trench poets. But I want to talk about a little bit of a different idea from that. I want to talk about the very first line here. If I should die, think only this of me. Why do I want to talk about that? Basically, what is being stated in that first line, don't feel sorry for me. If I should die, is a statement that begs almost sorrow. If I should die. Hey, if I die in the next couple months, that's not one of these don't feel sorry for me statements. That statement is sort of only brought up in order to say, hey, you should feel bad for me. Let me borrow your stereo. Do people still have stereos? I don't know. I'm an old person. Look, though. The idea is put out there right up front. And it's so up front, and it's so passive, and it's so, we zip past it so fast. I don't think it gets the sort of respect that it is due in this poem. All of the attention goes to that little idea of, hey, that corner of that field will be England. But the poet states straight up, very first thing, don't feel sorry for me. Which is also implying, if I die in some foreign land in this war, my purpose is served. What an anti-individualist message. This isn't normally what we're getting from the English. This isn't normally what we're getting from those bastard Americans. And I only mention Americans in this way because in almost every way, the American letters are an offshoot from English letters. But everything is so individualistic. Everything is so pro-individual that this idea that I am to die for the hive, and that's okay, baby. Don't feel sorrow for this guy. And when it doesn't just stop there. And think this heart all evil shed away, a pulse in the eternal mind, no less, gives somewhere back the thoughts by England given. Everything that I am is because of this country. Everything I harbor, everything that exists in my existence is because I am England. If anything, I think it's that should often be the message when this is trotted out as a pro-war poem. Not that it is pro-war, but that it is anti-individualist. If you look at the other examples, the anti-war examples of the trench warfare, trench poet movement, so many of those are about pro-individuality. So many of those are about individualistic experiences in the battlefield. That's the part about this that gets me. That's the part about this that is offsetting, if you ask me. Not the rah-rah aspect. I don't think you could find any hint in any of the greater British trench poets of wishing to lose the war. Most of the questioning is about, why are we here? What are we doing here? Was it supposed to be this awful? That's where the questions come from. The doubts about who should win aren't really there. The doubts about whether or not everybody on the opposing side is immoral, because so often the gears of war are aimed to dehumanize the opposite side. But here's the thing. Humans are individuals. That's what we're good at. So, when the gears of war are turning and the propaganda's churning out to say, hey, those folks over there, those ones, that's not human. We're dehumanizing that. And then we get the statement, if I should die, think only this of me, that there's some corner of a foreign field that is forever England. How dehumanizing is that? In the struggle to dehumanize the opposing forces, dehumanization is readily accepted by the pro-war movement. And make no mistake, the soldier is undoubtedly pro-war. You can go to all forms of fiction. So I'll use something that is sort of over the top and obvious. We could use comic books. When you look at Iron Man's arch nemesis, it is Ironmonger. When you look at Wolverine's arch nemesis, it is Sabretooth. The hero's main foil is basically the hero incarnate, but a bad guy. Wolverine's rogues gallery, by the way, basically it's just how many different ways can we draw Wolverine and have it, just go back and look. It's weird. It's strange. And it's strange because it's not as obvious as Iron Man. You're going to fight a guy in a metal suit. You got to have a guy in a metal suit, right? And don't give me this the Mandarin stuff. It's Ironmonger. Pro wrestling. You look at the NWO. They were the outsiders who came in black and white and destroyed the WCW. Who was the good guy on the other side of that coin? It was Sting, who was in black and white and was an outsider, adopted the outsider role in order to reclaim what the WCW had been. This idea of the hero's main foil being in the opposition is what we have here. Rupert Brooke in The Soldier is willing to give up his humanity, his individualism, in order to fight those inhuman Germans. It's always the Germans. And it is strange to see these things play out, not in fiction, but in the most dastardly reality. There is the calamity of war. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like this sort of thing, it really helps me out if you hit that like button. If you were here by chance but not designed, consider hitting that subscribe button in order to make sure that these videos keep getting suggested to you in the future. And look, I talk about poetry a lot. I do. There's all sorts of poetry videos on the channel. Maybe check those out. Short stories? You like short stories? I got short stories. What about novels? All day. Now go away.